Welcome. So in this video, we're going to take a moment and I'm going to show you how to install the SQL file into your MySQL. We have to do this so we have a database that we can use for our assignment. To do this, go to your Module 7, and in Module 7, you'll see under Materials several SQL files. These are all script files that can be ran within your SQL, within your MySQL, I should say, and this will install particular databases. For your assignment, you're going to need the example.sql. Now, what we're doing today in this video can be done on all of these files. So simply make sure when you do these other files, if you wish to do that, that you are just following the same directions, but rather than using the example SQL file, you're going to use one of the other ones. The first thing you should do is download the file. So here you can click the download and it will download for you. And here we can see my example SQL file. Now I want to take a moment just to go through what this file looks like. This file is nothing more than a text file that has the .sql as its extension. But in the file, as I said, it's text. And we can take a look at this and see examples of a lot of the commands that we are learning in this chapter. So this particular script, all it's doing is running a bunch of commands or SQL queries, one after another. I'm going to talk about just a couple of them to give you the example of what's going on. So one of our first sets of queries here is to set some preferences, including the SQL mode and the time zone. Then we're creating a database called example. And because we want to do all of our commands now, our SQL statements, in that database, we're going to say use example semicolon. And from here, we can create a table, and then we can insert data into that table. Now, I will tell you that some of the other SQL files, like script SQL, much more detailed. In fact, in this, it creates the database Java book, and it also creates the user that you may have already created. And then the first thing it does is it drops all the tables it's about to create. And that's because if you decide to run this query, use all the data that's created from this query, and then something happens, maybe you make some changes and you want to revert back to the original. If you run this script again, essentially this script will set you back to 0. It will drop all the tables it's previously created and then recreate them again. Now, if you don't have these tables, when it does this drop, it won't matter. It will throw warnings to let you know that the table didn't exist. But as you can see, it does have if it exists. So this query is quite intuitive and works really well. And like I said, once you've installed it and then use this data, if you need to reset back to the beginning, just rerun this script. Unfortunately, the example SQL does not really do that as well. All right, so with that, we've downloaded this file. The first thing we want to do in my downloads folder is I want to grab this file, the example file, and then navigate to my MySQL folder under Program Files. We're going to go into MySQL Server 8.0, and then we're going to put the file here in the bin folder. And you can see that I already have it in the bin folder. Here it is right here. By putting it here, it makes it a lot easier for us to get a hold of it when it's time to run it, because it's within the SQL Server environment, or I should say in the path. So let's go ahead and run. So I select Windows R and run our command prompt. Now, to get to our SQL, if you go to the document install MySQL, it's a Word document. There is under the logging into MySQL, number 4 is there are some common paths there that you can utilize under number 4. So I like to just copy that because we can use that in a couple of different spots. So here I'm going to say change directory, CD, and then I'm going to paste that whole line, but we don't need this whole line at first. So we want to back it out a little bit because we want to change to the directory first. We have to do this because to run any of our executables in this particular directory, we have to be in the directory. It's a safety feature that's built into Windows. So we're going to change the directory. As you saw, I added the period at the beginning, and I got rid of some of the stuff at the end. We hit enter, and now we can see our prompt is telling us that we are now in that bin folder. So with that, we're going to paste one more time. We don't really need this beginning, so we're going to do that, and then we're going to hit enter. Now I'm logging into the Scott user that we created when we were installing our database. If you didn't do that, this won't work, and you either have to then run MySQL as a root or go and do that process where you create the user. Don't worry about the warning. The warning is just to let you know that by putting my password on the command line, it may be insecure. And in fact, because I'm recording this, you can see my password to the user Scott. So that's why it's not very secure. Now that we're here, we can go ahead and run the commands that we need to run. These commands are also found in our chapter. Let me bring this over here. Under the 34.3.2, we only need really to utilize the source right here because it's going to do all that we need to do. So let's go back to our prompt, and we're going to type source and then example.sql with the semicolon on the end. And when we hit enter, if all works well, then we're going to see a bunch of, a handful of responses to the actual queries that are in this script. And there we go. As we can see, we have some 0 rows affected, some 1 rows affected. In this case, we added 10 records, so it says that 10 rows were affected and that we added 10 records with no duplicates. And just because we want to make sure everything went well, we can say show databases, our semicolon. And by doing that, we should see the database example now as part of our databases. We have now installed that script which installed a database and put data into the database as well, into a table. I hope this video helps. Be on the lookout for some additional videos just to get you through some of the things that are going on in this module.